You can make winter compost stay alive by feeding the microbes instead of fighting the cold. Most gardeners accept that compost slows down or completely shuts off in winter. Cold weather, frozen piles, and stalled decomposition are treated as unavoidable. But compost doesn't stop working because of cold alone. It stops because the microbial engine runs out of fuel. When you understand that, winter composting becomes less about insulation and more about biology. By combining molasses with a simple, often overlooked liquid, you can keep compost warm, active and garden-ready all winter long without turning piles or building elaborate systems. Heat in compost comes from microbial activity, not from insulation or size alone. In winter, microbes slow down because sugars and available carbon disappear first. Once fast food is gone, bacteria go dormant, fungi retreat, and the pile cools. Wrapping compost or adding more bulk doesn't fix this because, well, structure without food does nothing. If microbes are fed consistently, they generate heat even in cold conditions. Molasses is pure microbial fuel, you know. It provides simple sugars that bacteria can access immediately. When added correctly, it causes a rapid population bloom. That bloom generates heat as a byproduct of metabolism. Unlike synthetic activators, molasses feeds existing soil organisms rather than introducing foreign ones. It's especially effective in winter because cold slows consumption, allowing sugars to release energy gradually instead of burning off in a few days. Molasses alone helps, but when mixed with the right liquid, it becomes a compost activator that lasts. The secret liquid is, well, actively aerated compost tea or worm casting tea. This isn't about nutrients, really. It's about biology. Compost tea introduces living microbes that immediately consume the molasses and multiply. Worm tea adds enzymes and microbial diversity that stabilize the process. Together, they create a living inoculant that keeps compost biologically active, even as temperatures drop. Mixing molasses with plain water feeds whatever microbes happen to be present, which may be few in winter. Compost tea guarantees population density. Instead of waiting for dormant organisms to wake up, you introduce millions of active microbes ready to work. That jumpstart is what creates consistent warmth rather than short-lived heat spikes. Start with non-chlorinated water. Add finished compost or worm castings and aerate if possible for several hours. Once the tea smells earthy and alive, you'll want to add molasses slowly and mix it thoroughly. The ratio really does matter, you know. Too much sugar can actually cause anaerobic conditions. Just a small amount will fuel growth without souring the pile. This liquid should smell sweet and soil-like, never rotten. That's how you know you've got it just right. Now, apply the mixture evenly, but, you know, not all at once. Be sure to focus on the core of the pile, not just the surface. In winter, compost works best when the centre stays active, while the outer layers, well, they insulate naturally. Lightly moisten any dry areas before application so that microbes can spread easily. After adding the liquid, you'll want to cover the pile with straw, leaves, or even a bit of cardboard, just to trap in that precious heat and moisture. Now, turning compost, well, it actually releases heat and moisture, which is really counterproductive in the winter months. By feeding the microbes instead of disturbing them, heat builds up gradually and, tends to stick around a lot longer. The pile develops a stable warm core, where decomposition continues slowly but quite steadily. This steady activity, it actually prevents freezing, even when air temperatures drop well below zero. Kitchen scraps, shredded leaves, aged manure, coffee grounds and chopped garden waste all respond extremely well. Woody material breaks down more slowly, but, benefits indirectly as fungi stay active longer. The key is balance. Carbon-heavy piles need more frequent liquid feeding. Nitrogen-rich piles need less, but, still benefit from microbial diversity. Steam on cold mornings is one sign, but not the only one, The pile should feel warm when you reach into the centre. There should be no sour smell, really. Materials should darken and soften instead of freezing solid, which is what you're hoping for. Worms often move deeper into the pile instead of disappearing completely. In deep winter, once every 2 to 3 weeks is enough. In milder conditions, monthly applications maintain activity. Overfeeding causes imbalance. The goal here is maintenance, not acceleration. Winter compost doesn't need to finish fast. It just needs to stay alive. Winter active compost, well, it preserves nutrients instead of losing them to leaching and gas release. By spring, microbial populations are already established. When added to beds, the compost doesn't need a warm-up period. Plants access nutrients immediately, and, the soil responds faster. Adding molasses directly without microbial inoculation leads to sour compost. Overwatering suffocates organisms. It's really important to keep that in mind, as too much water can do more harm than good. Leaving piles uncovered, well, that allows heat loss. It's best to make sure your compost is protected, so it can do its job properly. Treat compost like a living system, not a trash heap. Honestly, giving it a bit of care and respect makes all the difference. Because, you see, it's based on biology, not temperature tricks. Feed microbes correctly and, well, they regulate their own environment. Winter becomes a slow fermentation phase rather than a shutdown. It's not that everything stops, but rather things just move at their own quiet pace. If you want compost that's ready the moment the soil thaws, well, this is the difference between waiting and preparing. It's all about being just a bit proactive, really. Feed the life inside your pile, and winter stops being a problem. Simple as that. Just keep nurturing, and you'll see the results. If this approach helped you rethink winter composting, subscribe for more soil-first gardening methods and, share this with a gardener who thinks compost has to sleep all winter.